G'day watchers, welcome to Perth Watch, your horology channel broadcasting from right here in Perth, Western Australia. Today I have the latest piece from Vario from Singapore, who incidentally the main guy I communicate with, the boss, is also named Ivan. So this is the carry case, which I think most of your watches probably ship in, which is not a bad thing because it is definitely very, very practical and has a spin rating I think at least 4. It's definitely smooth and is really quite useful. I've used this to carry watches around on travels quite a few times now. Nice kind of just solid packaging there, cloth on the outer and nicely padded on the inside. So just putting that aside and showing you this particular timepiece in closer detail. So this one is the one of the newest pieces, the 1945 D12, so Dirty Dozen is what that implies in shadow gray. So this is a field watch style, and the going MSRP is 368 USD on the site as I checked it right now. Time to time they definitely have sales on, so keep a lookout if that's something you'd like to wait for. Now in terms of Dirty Dozen, for those who may not be so familiar, that is, of course, an old war movie, but in watch collecting circles, that's also used to describe a dozen field-style watches, all with small seconds, which were issued and which were actually used by military, by soldiers in World War II. I just put a screenshot here of the original Dirty Dozen, including Omega and whatnot in that range. And you can see they are all field-style watches with small seconds, and kind of most of them all have railroad chapter rings, which, coming back to this watch is what that homage is going towards. Now, moving on, the first thing, as I usually talk about, is the movement in here is the Citizen Miyota. It's the 8-S5 in gilt, which is very interesting. They've chosen to put the gilt in here because they don't have a display case back. The 8-S5 also has an open heart display capability, but of course is not being used in this particular watch here. Now, rated accuracy, you can see there, in the 1 week I've had this running non-stop. It's running about +8 seconds per day, which is well within the tolerances which you usually expect in movements like this. Okay, moving on to describing the case now. This is a 37mm diameter case, so a nice choice of a vintage style. No, not completely vintage, but it's heading towards that. 10.9mm thick as measured by a caliper, 18mm lug width, and between my thumbnails there, the lug-to-lug distance is 45mm. So this will fit almost any guy I know. It is a nice small vintage style here. Finishing wise, circular brushing on the top surface of the bezel. It's got a polished bevel on the bezel itself, as well as that side surface of the bezel. Long brush on the top surface of the lugs, and long brush on the lateral surface of the cases. But the case also has a polished bevel. You can see there, particularly on the lug here. Matte finishing on the bottom surface of the lugs. And then, of course, you can see that case back, right, has brushing as well, but also a laser etching, which is an homage to World War II soldiery and the Dirty Dozen, which this name is implying. Okay, so you have that solid screw down case back. You have a screw down sign crown, and that thing there, that V there, Vario, is actually loomed. I'll try to put a shot to show you how it glows, which is really pleasing. That they've actually loomed that little thing there. So with that screw down crown and case back is a 100-meter water resistant rating, and a field watch which is perfect, right? This is a perfect everyday rating. You don't need to go nuts at 200 or 300 meters. This makes it very, very usable. Okay, moving on to the dial now. So what we have here is what I like to call a sandpaper dial. So this is sandpaper in gray. It's got an embossed Vario logo just under the 12 o'clock index there. And it's got a printed railroad chapter ring around the periphery, as well as printed sub-dial track there. Now the main hands are white colored and syringe style, filled with lume, of course, and it's just got a simple stick seconds for the small seconds in that sub-register there. It's got very thickly applied C3 lume in the indices, in the index dots on the railroad chapter ring, as well as the main hands. Interestingly, they've gone for BGW9 for the Roman numerals there, which is really cool. You know, the lume signature that gives you has a jewel tone, and I've really enjoyed looking at this in the dark, and it definitely glows very well with this application. Easily goes all the way through the night. Lume shot right here, of course, for you guys to see how it looks like in the dark. Right, moving on there. So above the dial is a very simple application of a flat sapphire crystal with internal anti-reflective coating, which works, you know, pretty well. Like if I turn it towards the bright window, of course you're going to see some reflections, but you know, in most other situations, it works perfectly well, I have to say. Okay, moving on to the strap. Now, Vario are known for many straps that they have gone. In fact, I think they started doing straps, you know, and they paired this with a black stitch Cordura. You know, hopefully you can see some of the texture here. It's pretty well done, you know, it's just a Cordura strap. But, you know, hey, this is very practical for a field style like this. Simple brushed hardware with Vario branding, right, and quick release bars, which is really something they've done a lot of. You know, almost all their straps come with quick release when possible. Right, okay, so that's the entire description. Let's pop it on the wrist for a wrist shot for you guys now. And there you go, guys, the Vario 1945 Dirty Dozen watch on my 17cm wrist, so 45mm lug width. As I said, fits almost anyone. It will fit my wife's wrist as well, actually, incidentally. 10.9mm tall. So, you know, as you know, you're not going to get much thinner than that in an automatic watch, are you? And that's how it looks like. Okay, very nicely fitting and definitely vintage sizing in the 37mm that they've gone for there. Right, so what have I enjoyed about this? Look, I think this is a pretty cool Dirty Dozen style vintage watch, right? It's got a vintage yet stylishly done dial here, right? With interesting details, right? Interesting case details, right? The bezel, how it's got different tones there, different finishing, especially this crown in the 430 position. They've pushed it all the way to 430, and I like how that crown interacts with that lug there. You can see how it's cut in there, so that's a bit of customization there. It's not just a simple symmetrical case, and they pushed it right there, so for people who wear it on the left, which is typical, it doesn't cut into your wrist when you bend your wrist up like that. And that's a nice little change up that they've done with that particular crown there. I think overall, you know, Vario are getting more and more refined. The construction here is very fair, you know, the fit and finish, no complaints here. The lume application is absolutely top quality. You know, the amount of lume they put in here, I think, is probably better than most watches at the 500 price range here. It glows very easily all the way through the night, as mentioned, and I like how they've gone for the dual colors there. I think the choice of 37mm is very good. You know, it's just the right in-between size. It's not too small. It's not going like 35 or less. It's not going full size up at 40. But this does give that vintage feel without being too small, which, you know, in all honesty, I think at 35 or less, I would probably not like it very much. And 100-meter water rating, which they've implemented, very useful and practical, as well as dual lugs, as I forgot to mention as well. Another practical aspect here. Yes, they gave you spring bars, but look, if you're going to change it up for a NATO or something, that's a very useful thing to have. You know, so overall, very nice and practical. Any complaints at all? Look, not much really. I think the choices they've made are really near perfect. You know, the case size, dual lume application, the Ghost logo, how that Vario is, it's almost like a clean skin. You hardly can see that. And I think that's a nice choice. The Cordura strap that they've gone with and the 430 crown, all of that is excellent choices. You know, so really nothing much to gripe about. The only thing I'd say is they've put a Miyota in here, and Miyotas, as you know, are unidirectional winding, so they can be a bit noisy. So I flick it. Right, that's going... I'm not sure if that camera will pick that up, but that rotor is free spinning now because it doesn't wind in both directions. I think if they put a Seiko NH35 style series movement, that will certainly be a lift up and make this pretty much perfect, I would say. So guys, that's my review of this watch, my honest thoughts about this. Let me know what you think below, you know, of this latest release from Vario from Singapore. Look forward to hear the conversation and comments. Guys, thank you again for sticking with me. As always, I'll catch you next time.